What do you mean you don't have the keys? I said into my phone. My hands were shaking. I was holding my phone so tight that my fingers hurt. The house was empty. That did not make sense at all. This was my home. This was the house where I grew up. I stood outside, walking back and forth on the sidewalk, feeling scared and confused. Across the street, my neighbor was sitting on his porch. He was an older man. He was watching me walk around like something bad had happened. I felt strange knowing he could see me, but I didn't care. I was too upset to think about anything else. But before I continue, hit the subscribe button and tell me where are you watching this from, and what time of day is it? My name is Callista Moreno. I had just driven 4 long hours from my university to Bakersfield. It was spring break. I was supposed to be happy. I was supposed to be excited to come home. I thought I would see my parents, hug my little brother, and sleep in my old bed. But when I arrived, everything was wrong. There was a big for sale sign pushed into the grass in front of the house. The sign was white with red letters. It looked new. The windows were empty. There were no curtains. I could see inside and I saw nothing. No couch. No chairs. No table. The house looked like no one lived there. On the porch there were 3 big black garbage bags. They were just sitting there like trash that nobody wanted. My heart started beating fast. I walked closer and slowly opened one of the bags. Inside I saw my clothes. I saw my books. I saw things that belonged to me. Things I loved. Things I left behind when I went to college. It felt like someone had taken my life and stuffed it into a trash bag. My phone rang. I jumped. It was my Uncle Caius. "Your father said you should have called first," he said. His voice sounded unsure, like he didn't want to talk. "They moved last week. Didn't they tell you?" I could barely speak. My mouth felt dry. "No," I said quietly. "They didn't tell me anything." I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking again. I called my dad. The phone rang and rang. Each ring felt slow, like time was stopping. Finally, he answered. "Hello, Dad," I said. "The house is empty. My stuff is in trash bags. What is going on?" There was silence. Then he said, "We moved." I waited for more words. None came. "You're an adult now," he said. "Deal with it." The call ended. I stared at my phone. I tried calling back. It went straight to voicemail. I called my mom. Voicemail. I called my younger brother, Tobias. No answer. Just like that, my family was gone. No warning. No goodbye. No new address. The sun was going down. The sky turned orange and pink. Long shadows stretched across the yard. This yard used to be mine. I used to run here. I used to play here. The maple tree was still there. My dad and I planted it when I was 8 years old. I remembered holding the shovel. I remembered getting dirt on my shoes. The tree was small back then. Now it was tall and strong. It reached up toward a house that no longer belonged to us. I thought about everything I had done to be a good daughter. Every month, I sent part of my scholarship money home to help my family. I studied very hard. I had a 3.9 GPA. I was studying pre-law. I worked a part-time job. I never got in trouble. I never talked back. I always tried to make my parents proud. And now I was standing outside my old house with trash bags full of my things. I didn't cry. Not yet. I picked up the garbage bags and put them in my car. I didn't know where else to go. I drove until I found a small motel. I paid for one night. The room smelled strange. The carpet was old. The bedspread felt rough under my hands. I placed my things on the bed. There were some textbooks. Some clothes. A broken picture frame. Inside the frame was a photo of my family at the beach from 3 summers ago. We were all smiling. My mom had her arm around me. My dad was laughing. My brother was holding a toy. Looking at it made my chest hurt. The smiles felt like lies now. That night, I made a decision. If my family wanted to act like I didn't exist, then I would stop chasing them. I would stop begging for love. I would build my own life. I would build something strong that no one could throw away. Growing up, I believed family meant always helping each other. My parents came to the United States from Mexico before I was born. Family was everything in our home. It was the most important rule. My dad worked long hours at a factory. Sometimes he worked double shifts. My mom cleaned houses all day. She came home tired with sore hands. They reminded us all the time how hard their lives were. "We came here with nothing," my dad said often. "So you could have everything." They told us school was the most important thing. "Education is your ticket," my dad said again and again. I listened carefully. While other kids went to parties, I stayed home to study. When my friends worked fun jobs at the mall, I worked at the courthouse to learn about the law. I wanted to make my parents proud. When I got into university with a scholarship, I thought everything would be okay. My younger brother Tobias was different. School was hard for him. He liked video games more than homework. He got in trouble more than once. But my parents always helped him. He's finding his way, they said. They never left him. But they left me. That night in the motel, I called Professor Celine. She was my law teacher and someone I trusted. They just left you, she asked. She sounded shocked. Yes, I said. My voice broke. I don't know what to do. I can't go back to the dorms yet. Listen to me, Callista, she said kindly. Come stay with me. We'll figure this out together. Professor Celine lived in an old house filled with books. She had 2 old cats who liked to sleep all day. She gave me a room and a key. She told me I could stay as long as I needed. During spring break, I didn't relax. I worked harder than ever. Professor Celine helped me get a summer internship at Riverton Law Partners. They helped people who were treated unfairly with housing. I thought it was strange that I was now helping people who lost their homes, just like me. Use what you've been through, Professor Celine said. It can help others. I thought about the photos in the trash bags. Birthdays, graduations, memories thrown away. That night, I blocked my family's phone numbers. All of them. My parents, my brother, my aunts, my uncles. When people asked about my family, I said, we're not in touch. At Riverton Law Partners, I met Vivia Marlowe. She was my supervisor. She noticed that I listened carefully. You really care, she told me. That matters. I spoke with families who were scared. Old people, parents, students. Their stories made my heart heavy, but they also gave me purpose. One night, I stayed late at the office. Vivia asked why. These people have nowhere to go, I said. 2 weeks in a motel is not enough. She nodded. So what are you going to do? I didn't know yet. Later, at a school meeting, I learned about a grant for students who wanted to help others. I stayed up late writing a plan. I wanted to help people stay in their homes. I called it the Safe Space Initiative. Months later, my parents called. I didn't answer. They didn't say sorry. They just wanted me to come back. When I got the $25,000 grant, I didn't tell them. I celebrated with my new family. People who chose me. By winter, Safe Space helped many students. I worked every day. I was tired, but I was proud. My parents kept calling. They said they missed me. But they never said what they did was wrong. Forgiveness needs truth. One day, I helped a student named Aurelio who lost his room unfairly. As I listened to him, I understood something important. I was no longer lost. I had built a home made of courage, kindness, and strength. And no one could ever put that in a trash bag again. As we talked about his choices, the office phone rang. It made a loud, shrill sound that made me jump a little. The Safe Space Initiative's office phone was not usually a place for personal calls, but I picked it up anyway. This is Callista, I said, trying to sound calm, though I was nervous. I looked at Aurelio, who sat quietly in the chair, shifting uncomfortably under my gaze. I shrugged at him, silently asking him to understand that I needed to take this call. Callista, is that you? The voice on the other end made my stomach drop. It was my mother. My heart thumped hard in my chest. How did she even get this number? It's on your website, she said as if it were the most normal thing in the world. I felt a tight knot in my stomach. Why didn't you answer our calls? We've been worried sick, she said. Her voice was breaking slightly, like she was trying not to cry. Aurelio shifted even more in his chair, and I quickly covered the phone with my hand. I'm sorry. I need to handle this. Can you wait outside for a little while? I asked him softly. He nodded and left the room quietly. Once the door clicked shut behind him, I uncovered the phone. This is my work. Please don't call here again, I said, trying to sound strong, even though my hands were trembling slightly. We're your parents, she said, her voice breaking more now. We have the right to call you. You lost that right, I said, my voice sharper than I expected. When you put my things in garbage bags and sold our house without telling me. I'm not doing this now. Your father made a mistake, she pleaded. We had money problems. The house was being taken by the bank. We were embarrassed. We didn't know what else to do. For a moment, I felt a small crack in my resolve. Money problems? Foreclosure? I asked softly, almost whispering. They never told me they were in trouble, I said. If you were having trouble, you could have told me. I would have helped. I was already sending money home. I would have helped even without you asking, I said, my voice growing softer. My father's pride stopped us, she said. You know how he is. I thought about my father's pride. It had always been strong, controlling almost everything in our family. But pride didn't make it okay for them to abandon me. I swallowed hard and tried to steady my voice. I need to get back to work, I said firmly. Please respect my boundaries. I hung up before she could say anything else. My hands were shaking a little as I placed the phone down. Even though the conversation had been brief, it had dug up feelings I thought I had buried long ago. I felt anger, yes, but also a strange sense of responsibility toward them, as if I were still tethered to their mistakes. Later that evening, Vivia found me still at my desk. Everything okay? You seem distracted, she said, perching on the edge of my desk like she usually did when she wanted to check on me. I hesitated, then told her about the call. Part of me wanted to believe my parents might have had a good reason for leaving. Maybe it wasn't just cruelty. Vivia considered this carefully. People almost never act from pure cruelty, Callista. But reasons and excuses are not the same. Whatever financial troubles they had, they chose to abandon you. That was their choice. She was right. And yet, my mother's words had planted a tiny seed of doubt in me. What if there was more to the story? What if they were desperate? The next day, against my better judgment, I did something I had resisted for months. I searched for my family online. My heart pounded as I clicked through social media pages, hoping for answers, but fearing what I might find. What I found shattered any emerging sympathy I might have had. My mother had posted a cheerful picture on Facebook just 3 weeks after they had moved. It showed her, my father, and Tobias smiling in front of a new house. The sun was shining, their faces were bright, and they looked like a happy family. The caption read, "New beginnings." So blessed. There had been no financial crisis. No foreclosure. They had just decided to leave me behind. The unanswered calls from my parents piled up like snow in winter. 120, 150, 200. Each voicemail was worse than the last. At first, they were demanding. Then they began pleading. Sometimes they even included little updates about their new lives, as if everything were normal, as if they hadn't abandoned me at all. Tobias got accepted to community college. My mother reported in one voicemail. He's studying computer programming. You always said he was smart. The neighbors brought us tamales, my father announced in April. Not as good as your mother's, but they're trying to be welcoming. These little updates made me angrier than the angry messages had. They were living happy lives, making friends, celebrating milestones, while I was still trying to understand the trauma of their abandonment. Meanwhile, the Safe Space Initiative was growing. A local news station ran a feature on our work, interviewing several students we had helped. The university newspaper followed with a profile highlighting my efforts to help students find housing. The small spotlights brought in more requests for help, and our office quickly became swamped. We need more resources, I told Vivia one afternoon, gesturing at our overflowing intake folders. More volunteers, more space, more funding. I might have a solution, she replied. The Quill Foundation is giving out their annual social justice grants. The award is big, enough to hire staff and rent proper offices. The application process was grueling. I spent weeks drafting and redrafting our proposal, gathering stories from clients, and compiling numbers about housing insecurity among students. The final document ran to 47 pages. It explained everything about the Safe Space Initiative, our mission, how we worked, and how we measured our success. 2 days after submitting the proposal, my phone rang again. This time it was an unfamiliar number with my hometown's area code. Hello, I said cautiously. Callista, it's Mrs. Safina, your neighbor from before. I hope it's okay that I called. I haven't spoken to you since the day I found the house empty. Your brother gave me your number. He said you might not answer if you saw your parents' names on caller ID. My defenses immediately went up. If this is about reconnecting with my parents... No, she interrupted quickly. It's about your old house. Someone broke in last night. The police think they were looking for valuables, but the house is empty. Your father asked me to check if maybe you came back for something. He didn't want to report a break-in if it was just you. I nearly laughed at the absurdity. I hadn't been back since that day, and I certainly didn't have any keys anymore. That's what I told him, Mrs. Safina said, sounding tired. But there's something else. The intruder left something behind. An envelope with your name on it. The police gave it to me since I'm watching the property. My heart skipped a beat. What does it say? I asked, my voice trembling a little. I haven't opened it, she said. It looks official. There's a law firm's name on it. Can you open it? Just tell me what it says. I asked, almost holding my breath. I heard paper tearing, then a long silence. Mrs. Safina? I asked nervously. It's about your grandmother's estate, she said slowly. Your grandmother in Mexico. She passed away when you were 13. You've inherited property in Waka, and there's a bank statement. Callista, it shows over $400,000. I couldn't believe it. My grandmother had always lived simply. How could she have left that much money? The letter says the property was developed after her death. Resort condos. Your share is the money from 2 units sold, she read carefully. I grabbed a pen and wrote down the law firm's contact information as she dictated it. My hands shook as I tried to process what this meant. Does it say when the inheritance became available? I asked. Yes. It was finalized last March, Mrs. Safina said. 1 month before your parents abandoned you. The timing was impossible to ignore. They had known about my inheritance and still left me behind. While I was trying to think about all of this, the Quill Foundation called. We had been selected as finalists for the grant and needed to prepare a presentation for their board. Normally, this would have been exciting. Instead, my mind kept circling back to the inheritance and my parents' betrayal. After speaking with Vivia, I contacted the Mexican law firm handling the estate. They confirmed that everything was legitimate. The inheritance was real. Most importantly, they told me that notification had been sent to my parents over a year ago, back when I was still 19. They knew and never told me, I said, my voice tight, when I spoke with Professor Celine during one of our regular dinners. Have you considered why? She asked, her tone calm but thoughtful. Money, I said bitterly. They probably thought they deserved it more than I did. Or maybe they planned to make me dependent on them. Perhaps, she said. But hiding an inheritance is difficult. You would have found out eventually. Maybe they were planning to tell you in their own way, to make you feel grateful. I pushed my plate away. I couldn't eat. The inheritance money was transferred to my account 3 days before the Quill Foundation presentation. I hadn't decided what to do with the money yet, but having it there gave me a strange sense of safety. For the first time since finding my childhood home empty, I felt untethered from my past. The Quill Foundation presentation was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon in May. I arrived at their downtown offices an hour early. The waiting area was sleek and modern, very different from the small, crowded space we had at the Safe Space Initiative. I reviewed my notes carefully, trying to push the thoughts about my parents and inheritance to the back of my mind. Our proposal requested $300,000 over 3 years to expand the Safe Space Initiative beyond the university and into the larger community. The money would allow us to hire staff, rent proper offices, and help even more students who were struggling to find safe housing. Ella Lehner arrived 20 minutes before the meeting. She looked perfect in her dark gray suit. Her hair was neat and her shoes shone. Ready? She asked, sitting next to me, her eyes kind but focused. I'm ready as I can be, I said, adjusting my own blue jacket. It looked professional but friendly, not too serious. The board can seem scary, she said quietly. But they really care about helping people. Focus on the stories, Callista. Tell them how safe space changes lives. I nodded. I had practiced this presentation hundreds of times, but now, with Ella Lehner sitting next to me, I felt both nervous and excited. We were led into a big meeting room. It was shiny and serious with a long, polished table. 8 people were sitting around it. Some of them I recognized from my research. There were business leaders from the city, people who give money to help others, and even a former judge. At the head of the table stood Magnus Quill, the director of the foundation. He smiled warmly and came toward us. Ms. Roas, Ms. Marlowe, welcome, he said, motioning to the area where we would give our presentation. We've read your proposal, and we're impressed. Now show us why Safe Space should get our support. I took a deep breath and connected my laptop to the projector. The big screen lit up and I began. I explained how Safe Space started as a small project when I was a student. I talked about how it had grown into a program that helped real people in the community. I shared stories about people who had nowhere safe to go, about families in trouble, and how our program gave them hope. Vivia added explanations about the law and how Safe Space helped fill gaps that other services couldn't. Together, we told a story about how we were changing the world, one person at a time. About 20 minutes into the presentation, while I was explaining our plans for growth and expansion, the door opened. A small assistant stepped in and whispered something to Mr. Quill. He nodded. I apologize for the interruption, he said. Ms. Roas, there are some people here who say they are your family. They are very insistent on speaking with you. My heart stopped. My family? I asked, barely able to breathe. They say it's urgent, Mr. Quill added, looking uncomfortable. We can ask them to wait if you want. Ella Laner touched my arm gently. Your choice, Callista, she said softly. I closed my eyes for a moment and took a steadying breath. After months of unanswered calls and letters, my parents had finally found me. And now, of all times, they had shown up. The timing was terrible, but it also felt telling. Please tell them I'll speak with them after the presentation, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. This is too important to interrupt. Mr. Quill nodded, clearly impressed by my professionalism. The assistant left to relay my message. I turned back to the presentation, but my mind was racing. Why now? Why after almost a year of silence? I finished talking automatically, keeping my voice professional even though my heart felt like it was pounding out of my chest. The board asked questions and I answered carefully, determined not to let my personal problems ruin this opportunity. When the meeting ended and they promised to give us an answer in 2 weeks, I felt hollow instead of happy. You were amazing, Vivia said as we gathered our materials. Especially with everything you were dealing with in your mind. Outside the meeting room, my parents and Tobias were waiting in the reception area. My mother stood up when she saw me. Her face was full of hope, worry, and determination, all mixed together. My father stayed seated, looking serious and closed off. Tobias shifted from foot to foot, not looking at me, trying to act like he wasn't uncomfortable. Callista, my mother said, taking a small step toward me. We need to talk. Vivia gave my shoulder a supportive squeeze. I'll give you privacy. Call me later. I nodded, grateful, and turned to face my family. Why are you here? How did you even find me? We saw the newspaper article about your housing program, my mom explained. It said you were presenting today. We've been trying to reach you for months. I know, I said coldly. 247 calls are hard to miss. My father finally stood up. This has gone on long enough, Callista. You're being childish. I let out a bitter laugh. Childish? I came home one day to find my belongings in garbage bags. You sold our house without telling me. You abandoned me. And now you say I'm childish. We made a mistake, my mother said, her voice shaking. We want to make it right. Now you want to make it right? I asked, my voice rising slightly. After a whole year? After I rebuilt my entire life without you? Why now? Tobias shifted uneasily in his seat. Just listen to them, Jazz, he said quietly. I know about the inheritance, I said flatly. Is that why you suddenly care about reconciliation? Because the money came through. My father's face darkened. You always judge too quickly, he said bitterly. And you always discard people. I shot back. You knew about my grandmother's money last March. You kept it from me. And then you threw me away. My mother's eyes widened in shock. I know everything, I said. Now, what do you want? The reception area wasn't the right place to sort out family problems, so we moved to a small coffee shop nearby. I sat across from them, keeping my distance as they tried to explain themselves. We're ashamed, my mother said, cradling her untouched coffee cup. About the foreclosure. Your father lost his job, and I couldn't earn enough cleaning houses. We didn't know what to do, so we moved away instead of asking for help. We thought we could fix our money problems before you found out. We panicked. I kept my voice low and steady. We found out about your grandmother's money right after you left for college, my father added. The lawyers said you would inherit it when you turned 21. We thought if we moved, if we started over somewhere new, we could fix everything before you knew. We thought you'd be better off without our problems. You had your scholarship, your friends. I pressed further. Then why now? Why come back now? They looked at each other, unsure. Tobias finally spoke. They know they made a terrible mistake, Jazz, he said. The safe space thing, my father added. We saw what you've done, and we realized we lost something important. You mean your successful daughter, I said bitterly. No, my mother said, her voice shaking. We mean our family. We mean our connection. I looked at them carefully. These were the people who had shaped my childhood and then shattered it. My mother looked older, her dark hair streaked with gray. My father seemed smaller somehow, his shoulders slumped. Tobias had grown taller, and his face looked more grown up now. I've built a new life, I said finally. I have friends and people who care about me no matter what I do. We're still your family, my father said firmly. I met his gaze steadily. Family doesn't put your belongings in garbage bags. Rising from the table, I left enough money to cover all of our drinks and prepared to leave. I didn't need closure. I had already moved forward. If they really wanted to make amends, they would have to respect my boundaries. As I walked away, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction, not revenge, but a quiet strength. I had faced the people who abandoned me on my own terms and walked away whole. The next morning, the Quill Foundation called. The Safe Space Initiative had been awarded the full grant amount, plus an extra $50,000 to help run the program. I could hardly believe it. That afternoon, a national news outlet contacted me. They wanted to feature Safe Space in a story about innovative ways to help people who didn't have stable housing. When the story aired 2 weeks later, millions of people saw it, including my parents. They never called again. Sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the one you are born into. And as I looked toward my future, I knew that I would never again measure my worth through anyone else's eyes. I had built my own life, my own support, and my own success, and no one could take that away from me. Every day after that, Safe Space grew a little more. We helped more families, more children, and more people who had nowhere to go. I became more confident in myself and my work. I realized that the pain my parents had caused me didn't have to control my life. I could be kind, strong, and caring, all at the same time. Sometimes I thought about Tobias. He had tried to make peace with all of us in the middle of that chaos. I hoped he learned from it too, that honesty, courage, and boundaries mattered. Safe Space became more than a project. It became a symbol of what could happen when people helped each other, when we built something together with love, care, and understanding. I wanted everyone who walked through our doors to feel safe, heard, and valued. And me. I knew now that my worth didn't depend on my parents, my money, or even my achievements. It depended on how I treated myself and the people I loved. I had learned the hard way, but I had learned. And I will never forget. Walking into each new day, I felt strong. I felt proud. And I felt free. I had faced my past, faced my fears, and built a life that was mine and mine alone. Sometimes the family you are born into will fail you. But the family you choose, the people you love and who love you back, can give you everything you need. And that was exactly what I had found.